Zimbabwe's cabinet has approved draft legislation that could significantly alter the country's political landscape. The proposed constitutional amendments would extend presidential terms from 5 to 7 years and allow the president to be elected by parliament rather than through a direct popular vote, potentially keeping President Emmerson Mnangagwa in office until 2030. To unpack the implications, we're now joined on the line from Zimbabwe by political analyst Takura Zhangazha. Takura, thanks very much indeed for joining us and welcome to the program.
Yeah, good morning.
So for listeners across the continent who may not be familiar with Zimbabwe's constitution, can you explain what these proposed amendments would change about how leaders are elected and how long they can serve? And the constitution doesn't support it at this stage, right?
Yeah, the constitution does not support a proposed 7-year term of office for the president. And currently it's 5 years tenure for the office of the president, and also a 5-year tenure for both parliament and local governments. And the elections are generally harmonized. So the proposals are to change the presidential term of office from 5 to 7 years, and also possibly extend the lifetime of the current parliament from 5 to 8 years.
So it's not coincidental that we've been hearing all this time about Mnangagwa 2030. This was always in the offing.
Yeah, it had been debated by ZANU-PF a lot. The ruling party, that is. They had debated it in their conferences, their annual conferences, and passed resolutions asking that the government that they run also changes the constitution to extend Mnangagwa's term of office. And that is their excuse, that it is coming from the ruling party's annual conference, and therefore it must be implemented, because they argue that no one is above the conference, no one is above their party, so they have to follow the resolution.
How difficult can it be to change the constitution?
Well, when it was drafted in 2013 and passed after a referendum, the drafters tried to make it difficult by ensuring that if you want to change the constitution, you have to have a national referendum. And in Zimbabwe's case, we are very familiar with constitutional referendums. We've had 2 in the last 25 years to come up with new constitutions. But it is difficult in terms of what the constitution says, because you have to have these referendums. But again, this can be argued in court or in the constitutional court about whether the constitution can be amended solely by parliament or only through a referendum. And I think there is a pending constitutional court case around this matter. I think in the course of the next week, we should be hearing what the constitutional court has to say.
The last elections, highly contested, and opposition figures saying, look, they just weren't free and fair. Does that play into ZANU-PF having this huge majority in parliament? And if this constitution is changed, they would essentially have a president for life.
Well, I don't think they would have a president for life, because their president comes from their party.
Yes,
Congress,
but they would be able to, if they keep on arranging the elections to get a majority in parliament, then into perpetuity, it's quite likely that they will be able to choose the president.
Yeah, it is. If they want the parliament to elect the president, given the current 2/3 majority they have in parliament, yes, it is possible that they would perpetually be able to elect a president, because they have a majority in parliament. That there is no doubt about that. And if they win any proposed election or scheduled election and get the same results again, then it would be easier for them to win the presidency without having to contest it with an individual candidate, almost like the South African system, where parliament sits and elects the president.
Critics say that this bill actually just amounts to a power grab. What's your take?
No, it's not a power grab in the strict sense of the term. It was planned. It has been planned for a while. It has been debated for a while, both within ZANU-PF and in the country. The if it is a power grab, you can only argue that it is one that they want to do using a technicality of the constitution. But ZANU-PF intends to stay in power in perpetuity, and it is looking at the state of the opposition and thinking it can do it with impunity. So they will use every technical means available to them to try it, because there's no clear opposition to those intentions. Or if it's there, it is on paper and probably only via the courts of law, particularly the constitutional courts. So I wouldn't call it a power grab in the strict sense of the term, because they're already in power. Maybe a power extension or intention to extend one person stay in power and also their party stay in power.
All right, perhaps help explain to listeners across the continent who might be saying, but hang on, why do they need to get Parliament to do the voting instead of one man, one vote, popular vote? Why the need for ZANU-PF to do this?
Well, it's easier for them because, first of all, the presidential elections, if they're run the way they're run now, they are more contentious than the parliamentary elections, because they're based on individuals campaigning to be president, not parties campaigning to run governments. Though, of course, the parties select the presidential candidates. But the key issue is that it's easier to have one parliamentary election than to have a three-tier election, which is the current case, where you elect the president, parliaments, parliamentarians, and local governments in one election, in one sitting, in one go, in one day. Or at least
and I suppose also with parliamentary elections, you can draw up the constituencies in a way that suit your vote requirement, whereas one man, one vote, you can't do that.
Yeah, one man, one vote for the president makes the entire country one single constituency. It's harder to win an election based on your personal charisma, but in my view, it's more democratic to actually have one man, one vote than to have a proportional parliamentary presidential voting system, that the party with the majority or the party with the best coalition, even if it doesn't have a majority, elects the president, as what happened with South Africa's elections that brought about this GNU that they have there, where the ANC didn't have a simple majority. So in my view, it's better to have a direct presidential election. It's more democratic.
All right, and perhaps finally your gut feeling, if this does go to a referendum, which way might it go?
Oh, this is highly unpopular. If it goes to a referendum, it will not pass. That's why they want to avoid the referendum. And that's why they are willing to shoulder a constitutional court challenge around it, with the hope that the constitutional court rules in their favor about what an amendment can mean and can be. But it is highly unpopular. It will lose. If this was to go to a direct national popular referendum, they would lose this vote to the people's concern and displeasure.
Takura, thank you so much indeed. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your insights on this plan by the governing party. That was Takura Zhangazha, who's a Zimbabwean political analyst, giving us some insights on the plans by ZANU-PF to try and extend the terms of presidency from 5 to 7 years, and also get Parliament to choose the president rather than one man, one vote.